In this video, we're talking about prosecution and specifically prosecutors' offices and how they are structured to prosecute cases. So there are really two main differences between certain agencies and how they actually operate their systems. They can prosecute what's called horizontally, or they can prosecute vertically. And we're going to explain what each one of those are and why they're important to know. So some agencies will do what's called horizontal prosecution. And what this means is that the way that they prosecute cases is tiered. So there's different levels, and prosecutors are assigned at different levels to do different tasks. So let's say, for example, somebody's charged with a felony. You'll have different stages. You'll have what's called pre-charging. Then you'll have what's called early disposition court. And then you'll have what's called trial levels. You'll have basically a trial group. And this is in felony court. So you have one set of attorneys who make the decisions here. All of the pre-charging decisions are done at this level. Then once they decide to actually file charges, then it will go up to the next level. And then you'll have what's called early disposition court. So it's called EDC in Maricopa County. And this is where you have another set of prosecutors who are totally different than this bottom set of prosecutors who are making decisions as to how to resolve a case at this level. Then, if they say the case is not resolved at this level, it will move up to another level. This is called trial group. And this gets a whole new set of prosecutors. So now the case is really going through a bunch of different levels of people, and they're doing different things. This can happen in Superior Court. It can happen in city courts. It can happen in a number of different agencies, but generally this is how they're structuring things. So the downside to that is that the person who may be handling the trial has no decision as to whether to charge the case or no decision as to whether to resolve the case in early disposition court. They kind of just get the case as it moves up the chain. That's different from what's called vertical prosecution. So in vertical prosecution, all of these decisions are made like this. So basically, one prosecutor is handling the case from beginning to end. So they'll have the case throughout the entire charging phase, through the entire early disposition phase, through the entirety of all of the pre-trial conferences, through the settlement conferences, through the oral arguments at any evidentiary hearings. They're going to be married to that case throughout the entirety of the case. And so if they take it to if the case goes to trial, they're going to be handling it. This is different from the horizontal prosecution, where sometimes some people doing trials, like in certain jurisdictions, they may not have ever even seen the case at all. The case works its way through the system, and then it lands on their desk because they're the trial attorney. And then they get the file and they go in and they do the trial. The downside to that is that they may not know anything. They may not know what happened in terms of your negotiations throughout the entire pre-trial process, whether the case should have even been charged, whether it should have gone through grand jury indictment. It runs its way all the way up through, and then horizontally, and then they get it read in their desk and they go do the trial. So that's horizontal, which is different than vertical. So vertical meaning they have the case the entire time. And there's pros and cons to these things. So sometimes in a vertical prosecution, the defense likes that better. And the reason why is because we are working with the same person the entire time, which is good because now we can have a long series of developing a relationship with them. There's a lot more negotiation that can happen. We can actually really present our case without fear of having them just say, that's not my problem, like might happen here, and they just kick it up to the next level. They say, well, I don't have to worry about that case. I'd never have to take that case to trial. I don't really care if you have a good issue or not. It's not my problem. It's going to be bumped up to somebody else. That's the downside of horizontal prosecution. Everybody's just kicking the can down the road. They don't even want to have a good conversation with you because it's ultimately not going to be them who's doing the trial. It's different in vertical. So in vertical, you're not dealing with somebody who has you have kind of a vested interest in resolving the case, or else it's going to trial. The downside of that is that if you get an unreasonable prosecutor in a vertical type of a situation, they may be unreasonable throughout the entirety of the case. There may just be somebody who just refuses to negotiate at all, or they have some sort of belief that this particular case deserves the maximum and they're not going to negotiate at all, in which case it's very difficult to see any movement on that person. Whereas here in horizontal prosecution, you may be seeing somebody who is unreasonable at this level, but you kick it up to the next level and you get a much more reasonable person. So you have that option. You have that kind of gamble that you might have that may actually provide you some significant benefits. Whereas on a vertical case, you don't have that chance, and you can't just hop between prosecutors and say, I want a new prosecutor. That's not how that works. So these are the two different ways that we see prosecuting agencies structure themselves. In Arizona, in Maricopa County, we see both of these. We also see some changes happening right now, so there are some shifts from a horizontal into a vertical type of prosecution, and so we're always monitoring that. We're always developing strategies. The way that we operate our team here is we have different attorneys that are assigned to different courts. We all will basically do what are called staffing meetings, where we all sit together and discuss strategies on all of our cases, but at the same time, we want to know what agencies are doing what so that we can develop the best strategies, get to know the people who are in these different systems so that we can negotiate and resolve your case in the best way, in the most favorable way possible for you. So if you've been charged with a crime, any crime at all, make sure you contact our office so that we can tell you what we know about your specific agency and your specific jurisdiction, your judges, your prosecutors, and how they operate their internals so that we can advise you and make sure that we are developing a strategy that responds to that and in a way that's going to give you the best outcome possible. Thanks for watching.